It had been years, but I remember that night like it happened yesterday. I was a college student back then, staying in my grandmother's old house for the weekend. She had passed away months before, and my parents hadn't sold the place yet. It was an aging Victorian home on the outskirts of a town that had seen better days. The streets were mostly abandoned after dark, and the neighbors were too far away to hear anything. I wasn't scared to be alone. In fact, I enjoyed it. A whole weekend with nothing but my laptop, a horror movie marathon, and a pile of junk food. My only company was Buck, an old mutt my grandmother had rescued years ago. Buck was huge but lazy, preferring to sleep at my feet rather than chase anything. He had never been much of a guard dog. It was nearly 1 a.m. When I finished my last slice of pizza, slouched on the couch, half asleep when I heard a noise, a thud from the basement. At first I ignored it. Old houses make noises. But Buck's head snapped up. His ears perked and a low growl rumbled in his throat. That was unusual. Buck never reacted to anything. I sat up listening. Silence. Maybe it was just the pipes. Then another thud. This one louder. Before I could react, Buck bolted upright, his lips curled back in a snarl, his body tense. Then he did something I had never seen him do in all the years we had him. He howled. Not a bark. Not a growl. A deep, mournful, rage-filled howl that echoed through the house. My skin crawled. That's when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of a doorknob rattling. The basement door. My heart slammed against my ribs. The only entrance to the basement was an old wooden door that led out to the backyard. It was bolted shut from the inside. No one should have been able to touch it. Then the rattling turned into pounding. Someone or something was trying to get inside. I grabbed the heavy fireplace poker nearby, gripping it tight. My pulse roared in my ears as I crept toward the basement door. Buck stood beside me, his hackles raised, growling so deeply it didn't even sound like him anymore. Then, through the pounding, I heard it. A voice. A man's voice, but wrong, like someone trying to sound human, but failing. Let me in. My breath hitched. The pounding stopped. I didn't move. Then I heard the voice again. Closer. I know you're there. Let me in. It wasn't coming from the basement anymore. It was coming from just outside the living room window. I didn't look. I didn't breathe. Buck snarled at the window, his teeth bared, but I refused to turn my head. I felt it watching me. Then came a soft tapping on the glass. I couldn't move. I saw you. That was enough. I grabbed Buck's collar and sprinted upstairs, locking myself in my grandmother's bedroom. I didn't sleep. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there, gripping the poker, listening. Eventually, the noises stopped. The next morning, I found the basement door wide open. The lock wasn't broken. The bolts weren't damaged. It was just open. And in the dirt outside, leading away from the door, only one set of footprints. Deep, clawed, and inhuman. The thing behind the door. My brother came home early that morning. I told him what had happened, the banging on the basement door, the voice at the window, and Buck's unnatural behavior. We went down to check the basement door together. When he pulled on the handle, the entire door fell off its hinges. It didn't break. It didn't crack. It simply collapsed, as if something had already weakened it. If that thing had pushed just a little harder, it would have been inside the house with me. Buck had saved my life. When I tell people this story, they brush it off. Dogs just have good instincts. They don't understand. Buck wasn't just barking at a burglar, he was reacting like something was wrong, on a level beyond normal danger. He never acted like that before. Not once. Not even when he was younger and stronger. It was as if he knew that door wouldn't hold, as if he knew what was waiting on the other side. Years later, Buck passed away. Before he was put down, I had a moment alone with him. I held his face in my hands, looked into his tired eyes and whispered, "Thank you." I was a grown man by then, with a wife and kids, something I never would have had if he hadn't been there that night. Whatever had been outside the house, it hadn't just wanted to rob me. It had wanted me, and I still wonder if it ever found someone else. But that wasn't my only close call. When I was 5 years old, my mother and I were home alone. My dad, a well-known surgeon, was away on business. We had just moved into a new house, a big, unfamiliar place that never quite felt like home. That night, I was sitting on the floor of the kitchen watching Harry and the Hendersons on a small TV tucked into a corner. The only light came from the flickering screen. Next to the TV was a massive picture window looking out into the dark, empty yard. Behind me, against the opposite wall, was the door to the garage. It had one of those long, flat handles, the kind that doesn't need a key to turn. As I sat there, lost in my movie, I heard something, a faint, slow creak. I turned my head. The garage door handle was moving. It went up, then down, up, then down. Something was trying to open it. I was frozen. My heart slammed against my ribs, my breath caught in my throat. The TV crackled, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Then the handle stopped moving. Silence. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at that door, too scared to blink. But the moment my brain caught up with my body, I screamed. I bolted up the stairs, my tiny feet slamming against the wood, my voice tearing through the house. My mom heard me. And then, we both heard footsteps running away down the driveway. She called the police immediately. They searched the property, but found nothing. They called it a prowler. Just some creep checking for unlocked doors. But here's the thing. There were 2 doors leading into the garage, one from the kitchen and one from the laundry room. When my mom and I checked later, we found the second door was unlocked. Whoever was out there had just picked the wrong one first. I still wonder what would have happened if they had tried the other door first. If they had gotten inside before I noticed. If they had crept up behind me while I was watching my movie, oblivious. Would I have screamed? Would my mother have heard me? Or would she have just found the TV still on, and an empty room? The man on the porch. It started with a voice. A man's voice. I had just come back from the movies with my family. Midnight, crisp autumn air, the scent of damp leaves clinging to my clothes. My house was dark when I entered, my roommates already asleep. I lived alone in the back apartment of a divided house, separated from 2 other tenants. As I settled into my room to do some late-night work, I heard it. A low, constant murmuring. At first, I dismissed it. The guy upstairs might be on a phone call. That made sense. But something was off. I had lived in this house long enough to know the walls weren't that thin, and the voice wasn't stopping. It wasn't punctuated by laughter, pauses, or responses. It was just a steady, unbroken stream of words, muttered in a tone I couldn't quite place. I paused my work and listened. The voice wasn't coming from the ceiling. It was coming from the other side of my room. My bedroom had an old, unused porch door. I had long since blocked it with a heavy dresser, rendering it just another wall in my mind. It led to a small, enclosed porch, which in turn led to the backyard. I felt something crawling in my chest. A pressure, a silent warning. But I shook it off. It's the guy upstairs. Who else could it be? 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. The voice never stopped. I turned off my lights, got into bed, and closed my eyes. The murmuring continued. Then I heard something that froze my blood. The porch door creaked open. I shot up. It wasn't a random creak, the kind old houses make. It was deliberate, a sound I knew well. The sound of that specific door moving. Someone was inside my porch. I crept to the dresser, pressing my ear against the old wood. The voice was clearer now, a man talking to himself, muttering nonsense in a steady, endless stream. Then, a shuffle, a low thump. Someone was sitting inside the porch. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering. I crept down the hallway, careful, silent, moving through the darkness of my house like a shadow. I made my way to the kitchen, which connected to the porch, and then in the streak of pale moonlight filtering through the window, I saw him. A man, sitting in the center of my enclosed porch. His back was to me, his long, scraggly hair matted and dirty. He was curled up, rocking back and forth, whispering to himself. Not on a phone, not talking to someone, talking to himself. I should have called the police. I should have grabbed a weapon. I should have done anything except what I did. But fear doesn't make you logical. Fear makes you act. I ripped open the door and screamed, "Get the hell out!" No reaction, not a flinch, not a jump, not even a slight startle, as if he had expected me. Then he slowly turned his head. Not his body, just his head at an unnatural angle. His face was gaunt, hollowed, with dark, sunken eyes that barely reflected the moonlight. His lips cracked open, and in a voice that was perfectly calm, he said, "My name is Evan." He never blinked. He never stopped rocking. I felt my stomach drop into a bottomless pit because I never told him my name. The man on the porch. I have always been cautious, maybe even overly so. Living alone in an inner-city neighborhood teaches you to double-check locks, stay aware of your surroundings, and trust that nagging feeling when something feels off. But no amount of caution could have prepared me for what happened 2 nights ago. It was Thanksgiving weekend. My family was in town, and we had gone out to see the new Wicked movie. By the time I got home, it was close to midnight. My apartment is in the back of a shared house divided into 3 units, 1 upstairs and 2 downstairs. I live in the rear unit, which has a private entrance and a small enclosed porch connected to my bedroom. The porch doesn't serve much purpose other than storage. Since moving in, I had blocked the door leading from my bedroom to the porch with a heavy dresser, so I never thought much about it. That night I walked in, locked the door behind me, and went straight to my bedroom to do some late-night work on my laptop. Everything was quiet, except for the occasional sound of cars passing outside. But after a few minutes, I heard something strange. A voice. A man's voice. At first, I assumed it was my upstairs neighbor talking on the phone. That made sense. His bedroom was directly above mine. But the longer I listened, the more something felt wrong. This wasn't a conversation. There were no pauses, no interruptions, no laughter, just a steady, continuous murmuring. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone sent a chill through me, low, rhythmic, almost like a chant. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself my neighbor was just having an unusually long phone call. But something gnawed at me. The more I listened, the more I realized the voice wasn't coming from above. It was coming from the other side of my bedroom, right by the porch door. I froze. My mind raced. That didn't make sense. The porch was enclosed and the only entrance was through the backyard door, which I always kept locked. But the murmuring continued, slipping through the cracks like a whisper meant only for me. I swallowed hard, my entire body tense. The dresser blocked the porch door, but it wasn't exactly secure. What if? Then the silence shattered. The creaking sound of a door opening. Not just any door, the porch door. My heart slammed against my ribs. I crept toward the dresser, pressing my ear against the wood. The voice was clearer now, a low, steady monologue. Not hurried, not frantic, just talking. Then a shuffle, a soft thump, like someone sitting down. A wave of ice coursed through my veins. Someone was inside the porch. I didn't dare breathe, didn't dare move. I strained to listen, hoping to catch another sound. Anything to tell me if he was alone, if he was dangerous. But all I heard was that steady, endless stream of words. I forced myself to move, inching out of my room and down the hallway. The kitchen had a door leading to the porch, and from there I could get a glimpse inside. My hands shook as I crouched low, careful to stay hidden. And that's when I saw him. Here's the rewritten version with the same eerie tone and suspense. My name is Evan. I felt the blood drain from my face. I hadn't asked his name. I hadn't said anything except for shouting at him to leave, yet he told me his name. A slow, creeping dread slithered up my spine. I forced myself to stay angry, to keep my voice firm. I don't care who you are. Get out. For the first time he moved, slowly, rising to his feet, deliberate, measured. His hands lifted slightly, palms out, not in surrender, more like a child playing pretend. I know, he murmured, his voice dipping into an eerie sing-song lilt. I'm hiding. A sick feeling twisted in my gut. Hiding? From what? Adrenaline surged through me. My body acted before my mind could catch up. I lunged forward, shoving the porch door open wider, stepping toward him, forcing him back. I don't give a damn what you're doing. Get off my property! His head twitched at my words, but he didn't resist. He stepped backwards, slow, deliberate, never breaking eye contact. His body rocked slightly as he moved. I followed, watching his every step, making sure he didn't turn back. The moment his feet hit the backyard, he stopped. He stood there just at the edge of the shadows, staring. Then, with a slow, unsettling grin, he whispered, I'll see you later. And then he was gone. I slammed the door shut, locked every bolt, stood there, chest rising and falling in shallow, panicked breaths. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. I checked every lock in the house, every window, every entrance. Twice. I didn't sleep that night. I haven't slept well since. Because the truth is, I don't know how long he was out there. sitting, watching, talking, and I don't know if he'll come back. But one thing is certain, from now on, I'll be double-checking my porch locks every single night.